Hello, good morning. I'm discussing about constructivism. Constructivism is an action-oriented approach to learning requiring students to build upon existing knowledge, to understand better and apply new concepts. Some principle of constructivism. Knowledge is constructed rather than innate or passively observed. Students learn new concepts by building upon their existing knowledge. Factors such as students' prior experience, learning, social and cultural beliefs, and how they uh, process information allow them to digest information in their own manner. Based on factors, one student's insight may differ from another's who may have different experience and beliefs. So giving them information, different takeaways from a lesson. Learning is an active process. This principle views learning as an active process rather than a passive one. Instead of being told something and expected to observe that, information learning is a dynamic process, means that students must be engaged and actively participate in their learning. To learn, students need to ask questions, contribute to discussions, and demonstrate that they can apply those learning in meaningful ways to deepen their understanding. All knowledge is socially constructed. This principle circles back to social emotional learning, which can start for students as you aspire. Social emotional learning helps students better understand their thoughts and feelings and develop greater self-awareness and empathy for others, those like them and those who experience differ from their own. In addition to the student understanding the material based on their prior knowledge, they also hear from classmates who may view the material differently, broadening their understanding. All knowledge is personal. Constructivism and education assert that each student with material and knowledge differently based on personal experience and feelings. Each student may bring a different perspective to the same lesson. Even when various students in a classroom share their thoughts on the same material, knowledge becomes personal for each student. Learning exists in the mind, while group discussion and actively based learning are essential. Constructivism posits that the most important work a student can do to develop their knowledge is to formulate thoughts on lessons presented to them. Active engagement of the mind is essential for effective learning. When a student engages with the material mentally, it enhances their ability to retain knowledge. Motivation drives learning. Students learn more if they are motivated. Okay, students learn more if they are motivated and excited to learn. While constructivism requires students to take an active role in their learning, teachers must find ways to help students tap into their knowledge resolves to better support the new information to resonate. Types of constructivism, cognitive. Cognitive constructivism operates on the perception that students actively construct knowledge based on their present stage of the cognitive development. Students make a sense of new knowledge by weaving it into their understanding. of the world and their experience up to that moment. Social constructivism. Social constructivism emphasized interaction with others as a basis for learning. People obtain knowledge from individual relationship, their culture and environment, as well as their role within larger communities. In essence, social constructivism operates on the belief that it makes a village to rise a child and that students' interactions with others help them construct their knowledge to build often forward. Radical constructivism. Radical constructivism views knowledge as something a student creates based on their own experience and not handed from teachers to the student. Radical constructivism encompasses the philosophy that knowledge is subjective and that every student construct their own knowledge based on personal perspective. As a result, radical constructivism calls for teachers to offer students more opportunities to create their knowledge and be aware of their students' different perspectives and backgrounds, which informs each student's learning process. There are 5 stages of constructivism. One of the first is inviting ideas, sometimes known as the engagement stage. This stage involves educator posing questions or situation for a student to consider, asking them to tap to their own knowledge reserves. The students then begins to formulate an opinion or idea on new information presented to them. Exploration. In the exploration stage, students build new knowledge, actively participating in an interactive experience with the concept presented to them. This can involve students and teachers discussing the questions or scenario posed in the engagement stage. Proposition. In the proposition stage, students discuss what they have learned and any observation made based on their initial engagement and new ideas that crop up during the discussion. The teacher plays a supportive role, helping them articulate their thoughts if needed. However, this stage is critical to the students demonstrating their student understanding of the concept. Explanation and solution. The explanation stage is sometimes referred to as the elaboration stage. Student can talk through the through their thought process and have a dialogue with their teacher. In turn, the teacher can address any misconception or misunderstanding, tailoring the lesson in a way that helps our student better grasp a concept based on their prior knowledge. Taking action, sometimes called the evaluation phase, actions involves the teacher asking students to sum up their cognitive process throughout and how their thoughts may have changed since the initial inviting idea phase. This allows students to apply new learning while examining how their initial perceptions evolve throughout the 5 stages based on new introduction, discussion, problem solving. So the 5 stages are: first is inviting ideas, exploration, proposition, explanation and solution, taking action. Characteristics on constructivism philosophy in education, learning through constructive activity. Okay, learning through constructive activity. Constructive-based learning is about students being actively involved in the process of constructing knowledge and creating meaning from the world. It's the exact opposite of the lecture-based learning, where the students receive information as passive bystanders. Promoting teachers-student interaction. It is one of the main conceptual pillars on the constructivist pedagogy. Teachers who foster positive relationship with their students create classroom environments more conducive to learning and meet the students' development, emotional, and academic needs. Emphasizing the social activity, social constructivism is the view that learning occurs through the social interaction and help others often in a group. The theory of social constructivism was developed by Vygotsky, and social constructivism is based on the idea that learners construct new knowledge. Emphasizing the social activity, promoting teacher-student interaction, learning to the constructive activity. Objectives of higher education in constructivism promote social constructed knowledge that is mainly acquired through the social process or institution. Enhance learning of students' may interactions and participation in cultural affairs, develop learners' consciousness to understand society and human behaviors, accelerate learners' performance through proper guidance, scaffold their knowledge in a possible ways, foster collaboration among the learners, motivate the students for social interactions, equip students with problem-solving skills, focus on individual thinking rather than their behavior for their long-term development. Constructive learning constructive learning theories and philosophies entail the following classrooms implication for effective learning and teaching, learning through meaningful tasks within the context, learning through interaction, learning is developing values and beliefs. Teaching through teaching through actions, teaching through sense and values, teaching through active meaning making process, learning through problem solving process, learning within the physical, wider social and cultural context environment. Advantage of a constructivist classroom. Constructivist approach in the classroom can benefit students in several ways. For starters, it fosters greater engagement among students, promoting them to ask questions and formulate their own opinions, enhancing their critical thinking skills. By behaving ability to a melodious ring sound in with the questions for their own instead on the simply instead to a lecture and echoing back what they have memorized. The argument for a constructive approach is that students have greater outcomes when they are more actively engaged. A constructive classroom also places a greater emphasis on tailoring the curriculum to focus on students. Teachers formulate lessons to make them more relatable to students based on their prior knowledge and experience. The onus is on the teacher to focus on topics of interest to students. Another advantage of a constructivist approach is that it calls for more significant social interaction between students and their teachers. Students may often work in groups, which helps them engage with new concepts and hear others' thoughts, which may not necessarily be similar to their perspectives of or life experience. Students develop a greater appreciation for their peers' opinions and observation and deepen their social skills. Disadvantage of constructivist classroom. While constructivism has many advantages, while constructivism has many advantages, there are disadvantages to this approach. Uh, for instance, teacher may need help creating lesson plans and personalizing instruction with an eye on constructivism. If they deal with larger class size, there is a correlation between overcrowded classroom, reduced attention among the students, and student misbehavior. A constructive approach may also pose a disadvantage as it deliberately avoid the standardized testing which can measure school and its students' progress at a district-wide, statewide, and even national level. This can pose a problem for students later on who may need to take standardized tests to qualify for entrance to an institution of higher learning and determine eligibility for academic scholarships. Customary classroom, for examples, cooperative learning, students can work in a small groups or one-on-one with another students to converse about a concept presented to them. This activity differs from a more traditional group work in that students work together to share their ideas and knowledge to complete a task instead of assigning specific tasks to a different group member or placing an undue burden on one or two students in group. Instead, students pool their knowledge and experience to arrive at a solution. Inquiry-based learning, students ask questions and arrive at answers based on independent research and observation. They share evidence to support the theories they obtain, then observe how their new findings connect to their previous knowledge and how it may be similar to or different. At the end of an inquiry-based learning activity, students state their conclusion and areas where they may want to deal deeper, understand, and concept better. Problem-based learning. Problem-based learning differs from the inquiry-based learning in that students are presented with the actual problem that requires them to work together to arrive at a solution. This fosters students' social and communication skills, requiring them to work with others instead of working independently to arrive at the solution or conclusion. So, constructivist classroom. Some examples are cooperative learning, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning. There are also some disadvantages of the constructivism, and also some advantage. And characteristics of constructive philosophy in higher education, learning through constructive activity, and that is the opposite of a lecture method, promoting the teacher-student interaction and social activity, uh, according to psychologist Vygotsky. There are 5 stages of constructivism. One of the first is inviting ideas, exploration, proposition, explanation and solution, and taking action, that is evaluation. Radical, cognitive, social, radical. These are the types of constructivism: cognitive, social, and radical. In case of radical, the concept knowledge is based on experience, not handed teacher to student. Social interaction, social interaction. Cognitive operates the perception of experience. Some principles of constructivism. Knowledge constructs rather than innate or passively observed. Learning is the active process. All knowledge is socially constructed. All knowledge is personal. Learning exists in the mind. Motivation drives learning. So constructivism is an action-oriented approach to learning, requiring students to build upon the existing knowledge to understand better and apply the new concept. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your patience. That's it now. Bye bye.